Hi, I'm Jeffrey Weissman, and I want to give you an improvisation bibliography. I started doing improv Renaissance fairs in 73, 4, and fell in love with improvising with Elizabethan tongue, and then, of course, started doing improv with groups on stage in the early to mid-'80s. Of course, with Renaissance fairs, the first improvisers we study are from Commedia dell'arte. So Mel Gordon's book on Lazzi is wonderful. John Rudland's Commedia dell'arte, really great stuff for learning about commedia and how they used improvisation in the Lazzis to build their shows. From the Ren Fairs, J. Paul Moore's Guerrilla Theater for Pamphletean Festivals is a great handbook, and he's got a new version out as well. Then, of course, when I started doing improv with troops, I was the artistic director of a group called the Flying Penguins that came out of the Comedy Omelette, which was a group made up of many improvisers in the LA area, from Groundlings and all the different schools of improv down there at the time, and met Dan O'Connor in London at a theater sports tournament that featured Dutch, English, Canadian, and American players. And we got together in Los Angeles because there was no Los Angeles theater sports group, and we learned from the Bay Area theater sports folk who came down. That included William Hall. Now, of course, we had the Bible for theater sports written by none other than Keith Johnstone, Impro. And Keith, of course, would come and do workshops from time to time, and William Hall, Barbara Scott, Rafe Chase would come down and do workshops with us, and then William put together the Playbook, which was filled with games that we could play either in workshops, rehearsals, and shows. Shortly thereafter, I discovered Truth and Comedy by Del Close, who's famous, of course, for his work with the Committee and Second City. Now, Del considered Impro by Keith Johnstone the Bible for improv until, of course, Del wrote this book, which is really fantastic. And then Charna Halpern, who wrote this with Del, wrote Art by Committee, which is a fabulous book describing all the other troupes out there that had evolved from the Herald and elsewhere. And each chapter not only describes their games and styles, but also it comes with a DVD that shows examples of their work. Advancing on the Chicago Improv, there's the Art of Chicago Improv by Rob Kolzowski, however you say it. I studied for a while with Andy Goldberg, who's artistic director of Off the Wall and taught out of the Improv in West Hollywood. Then there's all these other books, of course, you need to have. Improvise a Scene by Mick Napier. How to Improvise a Full-Length Play by Ken Adams. Improvising Better by Jimmy Carrane and Liz Allen. And Improv Wisdom by Patricia Madsen. And then, of course, William Hall issues a new version of Playbook that you have to buy that has even over 250 games in it. And then Upright Citizens Brigade opens their training center and comes out with this beautiful book, the Comedy Improvisation Manual, which I have as text when I teach. I teach at Sonoma State and at studios around the Bay Area and elsewhere. And this is such a comprehensive, wonderful, easy to understand book with examples and problems and graphics and everything. Of course, there's always musical comedy improv, and this complete guide, Creating Songs in the Moment by Michael Pollack, comes with a little CD of him playing accompaniment that you can improvise to with the formulas he gives you. Then there's drama games and improvs, games for the classroom and beyond. Now, I've had several copies, and I couldn't find for this demonstration my copy of theater games by Viola Spolin, but I did find a copy of Basic Improv Syllabus of Avery Schreiber using the training of Viola Spolin, which is also an incredible resource, and Viola Spolin was our guiding light for improv for many years. And then I found in my archives Song Improv by Phyllis Katz and Tracy Newman out of the Groundlings, an unpublished version of how to do singing improv. And yet, more recently, returning to Bay Area Theater Sports, I find that William Hall has now issued a new version of the Playbook, Improv Games for Performers. And of course, it is the go-to that everyone should have for choosing games for the classroom, for workshops, for rehearsals, and for the shows. And then my friend Dan O'Connor, who was the founder of LA Theater Sports with Ellen Idelson, has recently come out with Life Unscripted, and that's using improv in your everyday life. So there you are, my short, brief bibliography. Now go buy some books.